There was a time on Earth when nothing resembling a dinosaur had ever taken a step. When the world was ruled not by the giants most people imagine, but by creatures far stranger, more experimental, and in many ways, more terrifying. These were the pioneers of life on land, the first rulers of a young and unstable planet, long before the age of Tyrannosaurus or Triceratops ever began. Their story is not just one of dominance, but of disappearance, an entire world erased so completely that only fragments remain buried in stone. Hundreds of millions of years ago, during the late Paleozoic era, Earth was a radically different place. The continents were fused into a supercontinent known as Pangaea, surrounded by vast, shallow seas. The climate shifted between humid swamps and harsh, drying interiors, creating ecosystems that demanded adaptation. Life had only recently made the monumental leap from water to land, and evolution was moving quickly, experimenting with forms that would never exist again. In these early landscapes, the dominant creatures were not dinosaurs, but a group of animals known as synapsids, often called mammal-like reptiles, though that name barely captures their diversity. These animals would eventually give rise to mammals, but in their time, they were something entirely different. They ruled the land for tens of millions of years, shaping ecosystems in ways that would later be inherited by their distant descendants. Among them was Dimetrodon, a creature often mistaken for a dinosaur but far older. With its sprawling posture and massive sail rising from its back, it looked unlike anything alive today. That sail, formed by elongated spines connected by skin, is believed to have played a role in regulating body temperature, allowing Dimetrodon to absorb heat quickly in the morning and perhaps cool down later in the day. It was one of the top predators of its time, feeding on fish and other early land animals, dominating swampy environments where few could challenge it. But Dimetrodon was only one piece of a much larger and more complex world. Across the land, strange herbivores roamed. Animals like Edaphosaurus, which also carried a sail but used it differently. Unlike its carnivorous relative, Edaphosaurus fed on tough plant material, using specialized teeth to grind down the vegetation of ancient forests. These early ecosystems were filled with giant ferns, horsetails, and seed ferns, forming dense, humid environments that supported a wide range of life. Insects during this time were also unlike anything seen today. With higher oxygen levels in the atmosphere, some insects grew to enormous sizes. Dragonfly-like creatures with wingspans over 2 feet glided through the air, while massive millipedes crawled across the forest floor. These invertebrates were an essential part of the ecosystem, breaking down plant matter and forming the base of complex food webs. As time progressed, evolution continued to experiment. The synapsids began to diversify into new forms, including a group known as therapsids. These animals showed more advanced features, such as differentiated teeth, more upright postures, and possibly even early forms of fur or warm-blooded metabolism. They were becoming more efficient, more active, and better adapted to changing environments. One of the most remarkable therapsids was Moschops, a large, heavily built herbivore with a thick skull. It likely used its head for intraspecies combat, clashing with others of its kind in displays of dominance. Its body suggests a powerful but slow-moving animal, grazing across vast floodplains. Nearby predators like Inostrancevia stalked the land. This saber-toothed therapsid with long, curved canine teeth was a formidable hunter, capable of taking down large prey in a world without true mammals or dinosaurs. The ecosystems of this era were complex and dynamic, but they were also fragile. The climate of Pangaea was becoming increasingly extreme. The interior regions of the supercontinent grew hotter and drier, leading to the expansion of deserts and the decline of lush swamp environments. This shift placed enormous pressure on species that had evolved under very different conditions. At the same time, deep within the Earth, powerful geological forces were at work. Massive volcanic eruptions began to occur in what is now Siberia, releasing vast amounts of lava over an extended period. These eruptions, known today as the Siberian Traps, were among the most significant volcanic events in Earth's history. They released not only lava, but also enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. The consequences were catastrophic. Global temperatures rose, oceans became more acidic, and oxygen levels fluctuated dramatically. Ecosystems that had taken millions of years to develop began to collapse. This event, known as the Permian mass extinction, is the most severe extinction event ever recorded. It is estimated that around 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial species disappeared. The rulers of the pre-dinosaur world were among the victims. Entire lineages of synapsids vanished, along with countless other forms of life. The great predators, the massive herbivores, and the strange experimental creatures that had once dominated the land were gone. What remained were only a few resilient groups that would go on to evolve into new forms. In the aftermath of this extinction, Earth was a very different place. The ecosystems were simplified, with fewer species and less diversity. But this devastation also created opportunity. With so many ecological niches left empty, new groups of animals began to rise. Among them were the early archosaurs, a group that would eventually give rise to dinosaurs, crocodiles, and birds. The transition was not immediate. For millions of years, the survivors of the Permian extinction struggled to adapt to the harsh conditions. Some therapsids persisted, gradually evolving into more mammal-like forms. Others disappeared entirely. The world was in a state of recovery, slowly rebuilding the complexity that had been lost. Eventually, during the Triassic period, the first true dinosaurs appeared. They were small, lightly built, and not yet dominant. But they possessed traits that would give them an advantage in the changing world: upright postures, efficient breathing systems, and rapid growth rates. Over time, they would come to dominate the land, ushering in a new era that would last for over 160 million years. But the age before dinosaurs remains one of the most fascinating chapters in Earth's history. It was a time of experimentation, when evolution explored possibilities that would never be repeated. The creatures that lived during this era were not simply primitive versions of later animals. They were unique, adapted to a world that no longer exists. Their extinction was not just an end, but a turning point. It reshaped the course of evolution, clearing the way for the rise of dinosaurs and much later mammals. In a sense, the disappearance of these early rulers made possible the world that exists today. Fossils are the only evidence that these creatures ever lived. Scattered across ancient rock layers, they offer glimpses into a lost world, a world of towering sails, saber-toothed predators, and ecosystems unlike anything seen in the present. Each fossil is a fragment of a story that spans hundreds of millions of years, a reminder of how much has changed and how much has been lost. There is something deeply humbling in this history. The dominance of any group, no matter how powerful or widespread, is never permanent. The rulers of one era can vanish, replaced by entirely different forms of life. Earth is constantly changing, and life must change with it or face extinction. The giants that ruled before dinosaurs were not failures of evolution. They were part of a long and ongoing process, one that continues to shape the planet even now. Their story is not just about extinction, but about transformation, resilience, and the ever-changing nature of life on Earth. And somewhere beneath the surface, hidden in layers of ancient stone, there are still secrets waiting to be discovered. New species, new ecosystems, and new insights into a world that existed long before the age of dinosaurs began.